Food is something we all deal with every single day. We cook it, we buy it, we complain about the prices. We argue about what is healthy and what is not. But very rarely do we stop and ask a harder question. Who actually carries the weight of feeding this country? I'm Steve Mokaya, and this is the Nature Trail podcast, where we tell stories about science, agriculture, and biodiversity from Africa and beyond, but always through people. Today's episode grows out of conversations happening under the Center for Inclusive Climate Change Adaptation for a Sustainable Africa, ICASA initiative. ICASA has been engaging different actors on how gender, climate change, and nutrition are deeply connected. One of those actors is the Institute for Food Justice and Development, IFJAD. IFJAD works with what they call food workers. These are farmers, vendors, processors, people whose labor keeps food moving, but whose own access to food is often uncertain. I sat down with Chrispus Kinyua, IFJAD's founder and executive director, to talk about what food justice in reality looks like on the ground, especially when climate change enters the picture. And this conversation begins exactly where food systems usually begin, with women. Let's begin. When conversations about climate change happen, they often sound distant. Global targets, emissions, graphs, deadlines, But more often than not, to the ordinary person, climate change arrives as missed rains, as flooded farms, as empty granaries, as dry grasslands, and drying rivers and poor crop yields. And in many African communities, it arrives in kitchens, deciding what gets cooked, who eats first, and who eats last.
So when we look at the rural areas now, rural context, you find that women are at the heart of food systems. They are the producers of food, they grow food, they prepare food, they feed the families, and in many cases they actually eat last. And then climate change is worsening the issues of growing food because of unpredictability. Like right now we are staring at a crisis. Actually we are into one. The rains have not come yet. So you see now what this translates to is that families will have less food, mostly. And because women are usually not able to adapt as well because of various vulnerabilities, then they will actually suffer the most, women and children. And obviously in terms of nutrition also, they also affected women and children. Because when there's food is less, there's not much income, because you also remember that many of them actually work in the farms and they don't have other jobs. So nutrition also is compromised.
Across Africa, women are the backbone of food systems. They grow the food, they prepare it, they feed families. However, when land is inherited, when loans are being approved, when decisions are made, women are often pushed to the edges. And this contradiction sits at the heart of food injustice. The people who do the most work often own the least power.
That women work tirelessly, they invest their time, but when it comes to land ownership, because of the cultural barriers, or what you call negative socio-cultural norms, they don't have ownership to land. And whenever there are challenges at home, for instance, the usual domestic issues that happen, conflicts here and there, the woman has to leave. Then she lives with nothing. And sometimes she actually lives with children. And so it continues, that's the cycles of suffering. That is an issue that needs to be addressed urgently, that women deserve land ownership, equal land ownership as men usually do, as a matter of right, not as a matter of privilege, because they are the ones running, basically they're the engine behind our food systems. Another one, of course, issues of credit, also for women. Women are less likely to be given credit, because you see sometimes banks want that logbook, or they want that title deed, and they don't have those things. So then it becomes really challenging for them to access credit to grow food.
What rarely makes it into policy documents are the quiet innovations happening in villages and women's groups, such as saving circles, seed exchanges, and shared knowledge passed from one farmer to another. These projects are survival systems built without funding, without recognition, but with deep wisdom, and more often with indigenous knowledge.
So women have very unique social characteristics. Togetherness in women is something, that's a sociological thing. Chamas. And when women meet in chamas, oftentimes they discuss ideas to create wealth, to grow food. Seed exchange happens in those forums. When women meet for chamas, and one of them has an idea about a crop that is really working well, then many of them also will copy the same and do the same in their homes. I remember there was this time they started planting arrowroots. One of them came up with the idea of arrowroots, and all of them decided, and there was a vast technology of growing arrowroots without too much water. So I saw that working quite well, and there have been others. So that issue of getting together through the chamas that women meet is really, really useful.
In addition to climate change's role in reducing harvests, it destabilizes entire food systems, from soil health to supply chains, from pests to prices. And while the impacts are widespread, they are not evenly felt. Smallholder farmers in particular, especially women, often absorb the shock with no safety net.
There's a time where there's so much flooding, crops are wiped away, and drought, no rain, no water, like right now. We can even predict that the yields will be really bad and that animals might die. So smallholder farmers are affected in that way because of the climate change. The second one is pests and diseases. Because of now the climate issues, we have been seeing rises in very weird diseases and pests that now compete with the climate problems or the droughts and the floods to finish the crops of these farmers. Like now there has been a problem of fall armyworm, there have been problems of tuta absoluta, many challenges that are driven by climate.
Over time, farmers have come up with various methods of building resilience to push back against climate change shocks and be prepared for the next attack. However, Kinyua says resilience is not built overnight. It needs to be cultivated slowly, intentionally, from the soil upward. Across different regions, agroecological practices are quietly proving that food systems don't have to be extractive for them to be productive.
I have been working in this space for some years, and I have seen various practices working very well. One of it is actually the use of compost in soil. Our policies in government focus so much on chemical fertilizer. It's not working because our soils are getting more degraded. But when you use compost in soil, it improves the soil biology, the microorganisms, and encourages other organisms in the soil. Secondly, the soil chemistry in terms of the nutrients, the calcium, the magnesium, all those nitrogen. Then thirdly, the soil physical properties improve. Physical properties means that the soil, they have the right texture, for instance. They have all those physical properties that make soil ideal for growing food. Because when you look at, like now, clay soil, there's a way it holds together too much, and sandy soil doesn't. So when the physical properties are optimal, it means that there's that enough balance of the biomass, the compost, and so the roots are able to penetrate vizuri, and it makes it easier to grow food. Another thing I see working is mulching, covering of the soil with biomass or with dry matter. It's really important because, first of all, it conserves water because the soil is not exposed. Secondly, it protects the soil from erosion, either by wind or by water. Thirdly, it helps to improve the soil qualities, including the physical properties, including encouraging microbes, positive good ones. Another one is companion cropping, where you use the crops that work well together. Another one is biodiversity, encouraging different crops in the farm, not just monoculture like we see. And another one, of course, is reducing extensive use of chemicals, where we go the natural way, including now the pesticides and fertilizers that are made naturally. Such practices, I see them, they improve the resilience, because once the farm is like that, even when the climate is really bad, the farm is able to sustain itself. It's able to endure. Resilience is about enduring harsh experiences or harsh conditions. So when the soil is like that, then it's able to endure.
If solutions exist, the question becomes, why are they not scaling? Policies often acknowledge gender, climate, and nutrition, but rarely treat them as interconnected realities. And without implementation, good intentions remain words on paper.
The policies that we need right now are around women's access to land and other productive resources, access to capital, and access to education. To me, those are the three major ones. And that means challenging the traditional patriarchal systems that it's only men who get land. Access to capital means that women get more capital so that it can help them to start businesses or scale up the already existing businesses they are working on in the food systems. By the way, this issue of Mama Mboga, already that tells you it's a system that was already dominated and started by women. The ones who wake up very early in the morning, they go to the market to buy mboga, they come and cut for you. They do value addition. Very important work. So they need to have access to capital. But lastly and most importantly is the issue of empowerment, education. This means taking financial literacy classes to these women at the grassroots where they are, education that is practical. The financial literacy classes are tailor-made for them, so that they can be able to understand business, see their work as business, see it through the lens of professionalism. Because as it is now, there are many challenges and gaps in the informal sector. They don't earn as much. But when they are trained well, then there's a high chance that they will do better in terms of making more income.
It says that a true cheat code in this injustice will be through real involvement and empowerment of women. But he also points out that there is a difference between involving women and actually empowering them. One checks a box, the other changes lives.
There are many projects being done. A lot of money has been poured, of course, over the years. But the one thing people usually express the frustration that despite the many projects and the billions of dollars poured, we hardly see change. So the difference between projects that actually do the work and the ones that seem to do the work is the outcome. What are the people becoming? Are these people changing their mindsets? And this needs to be a very important question in programming, whether the organization is big or not. Are we having behavior change strategies in this project or in this program so that we help Kenyans? So it's not the issue of giving people fish, it's the issue of giving people a fishing rod and helping them, showing them how to fish, you get?
Climate change alters what grows in the fields. It also alters the very fabric of our meals. It dictates what reaches our tables, what our families can afford, and what our bodies can actually absorb. Nutrition begins to erode long before hunger is counted, long before anyone declares a crisis. And in that creeping erosion, lives are quietly weakened, one meal at a time. Despite the weight of the challenges, change is stirring, often from the ground up. It rises through civil society, through communities refusing to stay silent, through farmers who stand firm against systems that try to hold them down. Slowly, stubbornly even, transformation takes root where hope refuses to be quiet.
Just recently, there was a ruling in court of farmers were challenging a law that prohibited them from sharing seeds, indigenous seeds. But when farmers got together with civil society, they were able to challenge it in court, and there was a ruling. In as much as I heard, I don't know whether it's Kefis or who, they appealed to that ruling. But basically, there shouldn't be laws that hinder people from practicing the culture, the seed sharing. So I see that as one of it. And there have been others also in terms of many gains that I'm seeing, civil society driven and community driven, to champion agroecology, to champion for farming systems that are sustainable and that are climate friendly and climate resilient.
And with that, our journey through the complex landscape of food justice comes to a close. Always remember that food is dignity, it is community, It is a fundamental human right. As we hope for the days when food justice prevails, let us work for them, sowing seeds of change with every choice we make. Thank you for lending me your ears, your minds, and your hearts to this vital conversation. My name is Steve Mokaya, and this has been the Nature Trail podcast. Until next time we venture out, keep your feet on the trail and your eyes on the horizon. Goodbye for now.